Hi Queens, Sam here. I hope you're doing good. In today's video, we're going to be talking about budgeting. Ooh. I know maybe some of you are not excited about this topic, but hear me out. When it comes to building wealth, you need to become a master at budgeting. And I'm saying that in total honesty. For you to be able to pay down debt, for you to be able to save, to invest, ultimately build wealth, you need to have a control of where your money is going. Of course, you have a good idea of where your money is coming from, but most of the time, what really trumps the whole thing is that we don't have a good idea of where our money is going. To be able to investigate why our money is even going there and how it might prevent us from building the wealth in the time that we want to build it. So, I'm going to be sharing with you some misconception that people have about budgeting. I'm going to offer some tips for you to really, get good at budgeting, and also some tips on how to making sure you keep at it, because it is really important. And before I start, I'm going to share with you a personal struggle that I have. If you know me well and like that game, I'm pretty sure you probably know about me that I'm direction challenged. So I'm someone that clearly would have not been able to survive prior to the GPS being invented. And I'm not kidding. Even with the map, sometimes I can't find my way. Sometimes I'm still like trying to figure out. Sometimes you're walking on the street and you're trying to find a building or where you're going, and you ask people and they start saying go 2 blocks north and then 5 blocks south. I'm like, no, you already lost me. I can't do that. So each time that I get into my car to go to a place which is new to me, I thank whomever invented the GPS, because for me, it's an important tool that I have to have in my car. So then I make sure that I get to the place that I'm supposed to go in the shortest amount of time possible and with the less struggle possible. So essentially, the budget is pretty much, I'll say, like a part of your GPS. It's not the only thing when it comes to building wealth, but it is an important part of your GPS for building the wealth, because with the GPS, you have a good idea of where you are at, where you're starting your car, and your origin, and then you input your destination in there, and then the GPS will tell you based on few criteria the optimal route for you. And so the budget is essentially part of that GPS tool, and will give you a good idea of essentially, if you're saying that you want to have, let's say, 5,000 in your travel account by the end of the year, and you're like, I'm setting up a monthly portion of my money to making sure that I have that 5,000. The budget will help you to actually making sure you stick to that. And when you track your expenses, it will be able to tell you if you are really doing it. But you have to be able to have that budget as a baseline, and you have to be able to track your expenses. So, few misconceptions that people usually have about budget. And the first one is that people will say budgeting is complicated. And when I usually engage in conversation, people who say that, I realize that we complicate things for no reason. Most of the time, people are trying to put a lot of information in some simple template that they have downloaded out of internet, or they've been trying different templates, different budgeting apps, and it's not working for them. So for them, it's complicated. But what you should be doing, and this is my tip for that particular misconception, is really just taking the time to do your own work, your own pre-work and homework, and just looking at what exactly do you need. And I even tell people, start with the pen and paper. You do not need anything fancy to start a budget. Start with the pen and paper. Just track expenses for 1 month on a pen and paper. See what it looks like. And maybe if brave enough, put it in an Excel spreadsheet. And most of the time, you can even put something in place for yourself. You don't need to have any templates, off internet or anything like that. There are like amazing, great templates out there, but those templates were not made with you in mind. And I do believe each and every person's situation is different. My personal budget that I use right now, I have put it up, like I created myself, because I couldn't really find a format or like a template out of internet which really responded to my needs. So I had to kind of like do it myself, and it took me a bit of iterations, but now I have a final format which works for me, and that's because it gives me really an overview of my finances at all times. I can open that spreadsheet and see, where I'm at with, like, my credit cards, my bank accounts, my investment, like and that really gives me peace of mind because I have everything in one place. And that's what the budget is really good for. For me, that's really the purpose I wanted my budget for, and that's what I have it for. So the second misconceptions is people will say, actually, I can't keep it up. It's too much work. It's too much work to have a budget and to maintain it. Personally, it takes me half an hour to 45 minutes each week to look at my budget, update my expenses in there, just update my balances and things like that. And I really like that because it gives me visibility on where my money is going. And because I'm doing it manually, guess what? Each time that I have to spend money, I also know that money that I'm spending, I need to input it manually in my budget. So that helped me to actually ask the question, do I really need to make that expense? Do I really need to make that purchase? Because I know there is work coming after, but it's work that I'm really happy to do because it helps me with staying on track. So if you don't want to do it weekly, then do it bi-weekly. One thing that definitely I do not recommend is for you to set up your budget at the beginning of the month and not looking at it for the entire month and then look at it at the end of the month. Most likely, what happened is people do that and then they realize at the end of the month that they spent more in some categories than others, and they feel bad, and then shame and guilt kick in, and unfortunately it's not a pleasant feeling, and they decide to give up, and they're like, that budgeting things is too complicated. So I usually tell people, you have to adapt it to your schedule. If you're someone that's like, I cannot do half an hour a week like I'm doing right now, that's fine. So then can you do half an hour every 2 weeks? And in that case, maybe you want to make sure that your budget is not something complicated that will require you to be getting information from different places, but you can really find a way to do it within that half an hour. And the other thing is, even if the first month you have some frustration about it, I usually recommend to people, try it for 3 months. Tell you, I'm trying this for 3 months. At the end of the third month, then I'll decide if it's something that I want to continue. But it's just too easy to give up the first time. The first month, it's not working, and then you forget about it. But it's really not helping you. It's not serving you for the long term when it comes to building wealth. And the third misconception is, surprisingly, the word budget. I don't know why. It sets some people on fire. When you say budget, they're like, oh no, don't talk to me about that. It's not really something that I'm into. They just shut down just by hearing the word budget. I'm not sure what is the definition of the word budget in the dictionary, but I tell people, I'm like, if the word bothers you, use another word. I personally use money action plan, in lieu of budget, but that's because for me, I use it a bit like money action plan. So it's like a map. For me, it's like part of my map when it comes to building wealth. And also it speaks to me much more than just the word budget. But I know when you look at it, anyone will look at it and be like, this is a budget, and I will not disagree with them. However, if you look at under which name I've saved the document, it is called money action plan. So if the word budget bothers you, use another word. Use money plan, you can even use a random name which means nothing, which has nothing to do with budget, but speaks to you. If it's like a name of a famous person that you like, a name of a city that you like, it doesn't matter. But it needs to be, that should not stop you from actually budgeting. And so find a name that actually works for you. So yeah, that's really the gist of this video, and I hope that you're already budgeting, but if you are not and you're struggling with it, I would love to hear in the comments below what are your struggles about budgeting, and let's have a conversation about that and let's see how we can get better at that. If you did get any value from this video, as usual, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and also hit the notification bell. My next video, I'll be sharing with you a special project that I have for myself for the month of October, and who knows, you may want to join in. In the meantime, I wish you an amazing day and keep building wealth.